this right-wing infighting between the Daily Wire and Steven Crowder. It's great, but it looks like Candace Owens saw the video of Crowder abusing his wife and has an opinion on it. Let's hear it.
So a bit of breaking news that just happened. And before we get to it, I just want to back up and tell you why we are discussing this breaking news, because it's occurred to me that there are some people out there who believe that to be a conservative, what it means is that we become tribal and we defend other conservatives even when they do things that are wrong.
For the most part, that is what happens.
We don't discuss things that are horrible on our own side because we need to just make sure that we score wins in other ways, and that is wrong. So that to me is the exact opposite of why I have this platform. I am not tribal. I want to expose things when they are bad on the left, and I will also expose things when they are bad on the right. Obviously, I have been interested in the Steven Crowder saga pertaining to his divorce because he literally inserted me into his divorce a couple of days ago. And his wife and family are now speaking out regarding that video in which he told people publicly that his wife was leaving him. You remember this. He chose wrong. And he essentially made it sound as if he did not want his marriage to end, but his wife simply wanted to leave. Well, she has responded by giving video, and I want to prep you. I want you to know this is horrific video. It is very difficult to watch. It's especially difficult to watch because in this footage, she is 8 months pregnant. And the video essentially reveals just how emotionally abusive he has been. And she is alleging that he has been emotionally abusive to her. And this video all but confirms it. So let's first get to the footage. I'm just going to allow you to watch it in its entirety.
I'm going to skip this since I've already shown it on my channel a few times now. And we are back.
So that is both heartbreaking and infuriating for me to watch. I cannot even comprehend how any man can speak to a woman like that, least of all when she is 8 months pregnant. And sadly, that isn't the worst part of that correspondence. The journalist that dropped this video is Yashar Ali. He dropped this as well as a Substack entry accompanying it. On the Substack article, he wrote, "Moments later, off camera, Steven Crowder, by his own admission, would lose control and scream at his pregnant wife in a threatening tone, quote, 'I will f you up,' end quote, which led his wife to flee their home."
Yeah, that's why his wife wants to divorce, because he was threatening to assault her. It's kind of surprising, honestly, that Candace Owens is going against him, though maybe it's because they've already had a beef with the Steven Crowder company before that she's going against him. But normally, right-wingers will defend other right-wingers no matter what happens, especially when it comes to, marriage and all that.
She then sent a statement, which I want to be very clear. This statement I knew was going to come out. I didn't know any of this information. I had no idea there was a video or there was any evidence. I did know that their family was thinking about issuing a statement, and Hillary Crowder did issue a statement. And I'm going to read you that statement in its entirety because it's important. I think it reveals a lot of the lies that Steven has been telling publicly to his audiences. It reads, "Hillary is currently living alone in Dallas apart from her family and support system in Michigan and is focused on taking care of her young children. She is not prepared at this time to speak about her divorce becoming public or the misleading statements made by Steven about their relationship. The truth is that Hillary spent years hiding Steven's mentally and emotionally abusive behavior from her friends and family while she attempted to save their marriage. She was the one who was asking to work on their relationship to keep the marriage intact for their unborn child. In June of 2000,
I don't know why it's taking so long to pause, but for the most part, in most marriages, it is the woman that usually tries to keep the marriage together, especially in highly religious families, because it is considered worse for the woman to be divorced than it is for a man. So they're required to work harder to keep the marriage together, where the man just continually abuses her.
2021, Steven left their home to pursue elective surgery. That's very important. I want you to remember that. I'm going to come back to that point. Hillary urged him to get the help he needed to address his abuse with the hope that their marriage could be saved and they could peacefully live together as a family. Instead, Stephen refused to do so and chose not to be with his wife during the birth of their twin children.
Whoa, he didn't even want to be at the birth of his twins? How does this dude how does this dude consider himself a family man if he doesn't even want to be there to see the birth of his kids? That is messed up.
After the birth, Stephen bought a townhouse and left their home permanently. Hillary was not aware that Stephen hired a divorce attorney and asked his assistant to cut Hillary off financially. There is significant documentation substantiating these facts. I want you to remember that portion as well, because that's another lie that Stephen has told publicly. We hope that Stephen will cease from speaking publicly about these personal matters in an untruthful manner. We also look forward to there being full transparency in the legal process so there is fairness and accountability for the actions that caused the divorce and to ensure the outcome is what is in the best interests of the young children. I would first like to go back to that portion where she says Stephen left their home to pursue elective surgery, because I know exactly what surgery she's referring to, because during my first backstage here at Daily Wire, we actually prayed for Stephen and this surgery. So before I show you a clip from us on backstage, here is Stephen describing that surgery, and it certainly doesn't sound like it's elective. Take a listen.
I explained to you a little bit what it is. You know, a lot of people say, why are you smoking? My heart is actually great, but my heart doesn't work great. And the reason my heart doesn't work great is, long story short, because of a connective tissue disorder I have, and my chest is caving in on my heart. So I've got I'm at a little more than half of the blood flow that you guys have, ventricular output from my heart. So it's a mechanical fix. And I don't know, maybe I'll feel like Lance Armstrong, you know, like I'm on EPO after this, because I don't know what it's like to go through life with full blood flow. To me, I'm looking forward to it, not looking forward to the pain. Lance Armstrong, by the way, with the 3 balls, not the one.
Hopefully the surgery goes wrong.
So yeah, it's overall a positive thing, and honestly, I've probably needed a little bit of rest. It comes in the form of having my chest cracked open.
Obviously, he had the surgery, and then his lung collapsed, and here is us praying for him, praying that he actually gets better.
Before we leave, I just have to, this one off the subject for a minute. Our pal, Steve Crowder, who makes the best ashtrays in the country,
truly
is in the hospital fighting for his life, and he's really come close. He's come close to the dark edge of things. And I just want to say that crazy as he is, we love him, and we're thinking about him. That you know, we hope he makes it back.
You're a better man than I am.
Well, that's true.
I was actually just looking forward to the show being over so that I could text him and say, you know, hope you don't make it, pal.
You know, actually, this is a real story. Last night I had to go for a drive because it's a long story, but I had to burn down gas to take my car into the shop. And so I was going to smoke a cigar, and, you know, I was going to say my nightly prayers. And I thought, oh, you know, I should probably pray for Crowder, you know, because he's in this. And I thought, oh, well, you know what's great? I'm going to light up one of the cigars that Crowder sent me.
Yeah.
And Crowder, this guy who's a complete maniac, he sent me these beautiful cigars. And I was like, oh, pal, I'm going to send you some cigars right away from my humidor. Haven't sent him a single thing, you know, but that guy, he, you know, really a generous fellow. And doesn't get enough credit.
I mean, it's not hard to send somebody something when you got like millions of dollars. Like, is like a couple $100 like that generous? Because, you know, cigars, they cost a bit, but, you know, when you have way more than enough money, that's meaningless.
Actually did text him and say that we were praying for him at great risk to our souls.
And if he dies, I personally will kill him. Right?
And yet, according to his wife, this was an elective surgery, really a cosmetic surgery, because Stephen didn't like the way that his chest looked because he had a sunken chest. And it was not something that was actually required to save his life. And yet we see that same pattern of behavior. Stephen garnering a ton of affection and prayers from his followers purporting to be the victim, when in fact the facts don't line up with his narrative. The second portion that I'd like to point to is where it says Hillary was not aware that Stephen hired a divorce attorney. This stands in stark contrast to what he told his followers when he said how hard divorce was and how difficult and horrific it had been and how he really didn't want it, and just, you know, Texas is a no-fault divorce state. What is the truth here? I don't know. Obviously, right now we have his wife's word versus Stephen's word, but given my personal experience with Stephen, I am very much inclined to believe his wife. Now, I'd like to get in some other portions of this article, which I think are really important. The writer has a bunch of audio files and text messages that were sent to him that he was able to review. He writes, in audio files and text messages that I reviewed, Stephen Crowder admits to some of his faults, which include a volcanic temper, repeatedly and at times regretfully. But according to sources that I spoke to who are familiar with their relationship, Crowder's admissions often came after a sustained period of mental and emotional abuse, and he didn't seem to be able to control his impulses. That, again, is something that I have seen personally. Very bizarre. He would insert me into a divorce announcement and purport that I somehow extorted him. It's very bizarre.
So he admits that his that he has explosive or volcanic anger, which makes me think that he will be physically harmful, because people with anger like that easily becomes physical. And there's other people, neighbors and stuff, that can support that he admits to being abusive afterwards. Maybe it could be from guilt. Maybe he's trying to seek sympathy and, tell people he's going to change so that, they give him a clap on the back.
He attacked the Daily Wire, and there just seem to be a lot of signs that he is not able to control his emotions. And so the question that I will ask is, how many people are going to allege abuse from Stephen Crowder before we listen, before we stop saying he's one of us because he says things that he agrees with? We purport that we are the party of family values. How can you look at that video and defend him in any way? How can you look at that video and not roundly condemn this and say this is not something that actually represents the things that we believe?
Because that is what, like, 99% of right-wingers believe, that disciplining your wife in such a way is family values, because how you're supposed to discipline the wife, because women are evil. So, I mean, it is funny. I do like that she's speaking out against Crowder, especially since she's on the right. But let's not pretend here that the family values for the right wing is just pure abuse towards women.
The writer goes on to say, like so many things in his life in recent years, Crowder's temper and paranoia led him to destroy his relationships with Sir Shapiro, Boring, and others at the Daily Wire when he posted a video on his channel suggesting that the Daily Wire, without naming the company, was attempting to align itself with big tech by mentioning in their initial offer to him that if he was demonetized on social media platforms, that it would reduce his overall compensation. Well, again, going back to the pattern, it's not just the Daily Wire. It's David Landau. It's Sven the Computer. It's Jared Monroe, formerly known as Not Gay Jared, people that are locked into NDAs and are not allowed to speak about the abuse that they endured by Stephen Crowder. It's Owen Benjamin. It's now his wife. Do you believe that all of these various different parties, the majority of them who have never spoken to each other, I've never spoken to Sven the Computer, I've never spoken to David Landau, I've never spoken to Hillary Crowder, I've never spoken to Owen Benjamin. Do you believe that all of these people, as is the paranoid narrative that Stephen Crowder is presenting, are working maybe in collusion with big tech to try to destroy him? Or do you believe it's plausible that Stephen Crowder is just a monster?
Well, like most right-wing men, he is definitely a monster who will try to make this out to be that he is the victim, because even the right-wingers always say, the left loves to play the victim, the right wing does it even more, and they use it to grift. Stephen Crowder definitely has ruined